Did you know that right now, 1.3 million Americans are living in nursing homes, and most of them never planned to stay as long as they did? I'm 99 years old. I walked out of one 6 months ago, not because I was confused, not because I was being difficult, because I finally remembered something nobody inside those walls wants you to know. Honey, you are allowed to leave. Sit down. I'm going to tell you everything. My family called it temporary. That word did a lot of work in the spring of 2023. Temporary meant just until you're stronger. Temporary meant we'll reassess. Temporary meant nobody was quite sure what came next, but we weren't calling it permanent, not out loud. I have lived long enough to know that the most dangerous words in any family are the ones that go unfinished. The sentence that trails off, the question nobody asks because asking it out loud makes it real. Temporary was that word for us, soft enough to hold on to and vague enough to mean anything. It kept us comfortable right up until the moment it stopped working. I moved into room 12 with one suitcase, like checking into a hotel, except nobody handed me a checkout date. I remember standing in that room the first night, looking at the walls, thinking, I chose this, or I thought I chose this, and then wondering if there was a difference between choosing something and simply running out of other words to say. I unpacked that suitcase slowly. I hung two things on the wall. I told myself it was fine. The sounds in the hallway at night, the shuffling, the calling out, the soft beeping of machines. I told myself they'd blend into background. Some of them did. There is a sound a person makes when they are calling for someone and no one is coming, and I don't think any amount of time makes that sound fade. I signed papers that first day, pages of them. My son held them. I held the pen. And somewhere between the medication management form and the financial disclosure, I stopped reading. Don't you do that. Read everything. Ask for a copy of everything. Take it home and look at it with fresh eyes the next morning, because the day they show you the brochure is the worst possible day to sign anything. I have seen too many families, smart, loving, well-meaning families, hand over a pen on the worst afternoon of their lives and not look up until 6 months had passed and the savings account told a story nobody was ready to hear. Grief is not a good business advisor. Crisis is not the right moment to evaluate a contract. And yet that is precisely when most families are asked to do both. Handed a glossy folder with a photograph of a woman doing a puzzle, asked to make a decision that will cost more per year than most Americans earn, in a room they've never sat in before, in clothes they've been wearing since 3 a.m. I'll tell you what those papers committed me to. A private room in a nursing home runs a national median of $9,733 a month. That's according to Genworth's 2023 Cost of Care Survey. $116,800 $800 a year. Residents who stay 1 to 3 years, and the federal data shows many do, will spend somewhere between $120,000 and $350,000, most of it money their families never budgeted for, most of it gone before anyone added it up. Hear that number again, $350,000. That is not an outlier. That is the lived experience of thousands of American families every single year, most of whom, when they started, thought they were only signing up for temporary. I want to be fair to the people who worked in that building. The staff at my facility were genuinely kind, good people doing a hard job. But kindness is not the same as seeing someone. You feel it in the way a question becomes a task. You feel it when someone hands you your pills and moves to the next door without waiting to see if you are having a good day or a hard one. Kindness that moves at that pace is not cruelty, but it is not connection either. I never blamed any one of them, but I also couldn't pretend the system was built around anything except efficiency. And efficiency and dignity are not always the same thing. I spent 381 days watching good people fade, not physically, quietly. Men who had run companies, women who had raised 5 children and kept every one of them in line, people with sharp, funny, informed opinions about the world, sitting in a hallway, waiting for someone to ask. Nobody asked. I used to look down that hallway and think about all the years of knowledge just sitting there in those chairs, decades of living, decades of knowing. There was a man 3 doors down from me. I'll call him Frank because that was his name and he was proud of it, who had been a civil engineer for 37 years. He had built bridges, actual bridges that actual people drove over every single day without knowing his name. He sat in that hallway with his hands folded in his lap and the television tuned to something he hadn't chosen, and nobody ever once asked him what it felt like to build a bridge. I sat with him. I asked. You should have seen his face. He looked at me like he was checking whether it was a joke. We talked for 2 hours. After that, we talked every day. What I'm telling you is, the conversation was always there. The asking was just missing. I kept a small orange notebook in my coat pocket. Every day I wrote the date at the top, the weather, and one thing I'd noticed. That notebook was not nostalgia. It was proof. Proof that I was still here, still thinking, still counting my days, still the person who had always known exactly what day it was. If you are in one of those places right now, or if you love someone who is, never stop writing, never stop counting. Write your name at the top of the page every single morning if you have to. The act of writing is the act of saying, I am still here, I still matter, this is still my life. There is a particular kind of erosion that happens in institutional settings, not dramatic, not sudden, but slow and steady, like water wearing its stone. And when you stop noticing, you stop pushing back. And when you stop pushing back, the days make the decisions instead of you. Write things down, notice things on purpose. That notebook was the most important thing I owned in room 12. The morning I left, I put on my coat at 6:55, took my husband's photograph off the nightstand, and walked out. 7 a.m. is shift change. There is a window of about 4 minutes when the outgoing staff are giving report and the incoming staff are still getting settled. I wasn't sneaking. I wasn't confused. I walked out like I owned the place, because in every way that mattered, I did. I want you to understand what that walk felt like. 99 years old, one coat, one photograph. Walking through a door I was fully, legally entitled to walk through, and yet my heart was pounding. Because nobody had ever told me clearly that I had that right. I had lived in that building for 381 days, and not one person had ever said, "You can leave whenever you choose." That silence is not an accident, and I want to make sure you never sit in it. If this is hitting close to home, subscribe right now. Every week I share what 99 years of living actually taught me. It's free, and it might be the most important thing someone you love ever hears. Here is what the facility never posted on its bulletin board. Under the Nursing Home Reform Act of 1987, passed as part of the Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act, federal law, a voluntary resident who is mentally capable has the right to leave anytime. No facility can legally hold a mentally competent adult who chooses to go. They are not required to advertise this. They are not always eager to remind you. But it is the law, and it has been the law for nearly 40 years. I want to say that one more time. Federal law since 1987. Most residents don't know it. Most families don't know it. Now you do. That same act gives you the right to refuse medication and treatment, the right to manage your own finances, the right to file a complaint without fear of punishment or retaliation, the right to privacy, the right to be treated with dignity, the right to participate in your own care planning, which means you are entitled to sit in the room when decisions about your care are being made, and your voice is required to be part of that conversation. These are not suggestions. These are federal protections. They apply to every resident in every nursing home that accepts Medicare or Medicaid funding, and that is nearly all of them. Write those rights down. Put them in your purse. Put them in your wallet. Give a copy to someone you trust, someone who will pull it out and read it back to a doctor at 2 in the morning if they have to. Don't assume the people around you know these things. Most of them don't. Most of the families I've spoken to since I left had no idea that any of this was law. They assumed the facility knew best. They assumed the paperwork was standard. They assumed that if there were options, someone would have offered them. That is exactly what the system counts on. Not malice, but assumption. The assumption that everyone already knows, and the silence that grows when nobody checks. There is also a program most families have never heard of, and it costs nothing. In every single U.S. state, every one, there is a long-term care ombudsman program. Ombudsmen are trained advocates whose entire job is to protect the rights of nursing home and assisted living residents. Free, confidential, authorized under the Older Americans Act. You can find yours at eldercare.acl.gov, or you can call 1-800-677-1116. That is the Elder Care Locator, run by the U.S. Administration on Aging. Save that number right now. Not for someday, right now. Put it in your phone under a name you'll remember. I want you to have it before you need it, not after. An ombudsman can investigate complaints on your behalf, attend care planning meetings with you, and help you navigate a dispute with a facility, all at no cost. That program exists. It is funded. It is waiting. Most people never call because most people don't know to call. Now you know. Now let me show you the numbers nobody sits down and shows you before you sign anything. A private room in a nursing home, $9,733 a month. National median. Genworth, 2023. A home health aide, someone who comes to your home and provides hands-on personal care, costs a national median of $6,292 a month. Same source, same year. That is more than $3,400 a month less than a nursing home private room. And you are sleeping in your own bed, in your own house, in a room you chose. Assisted living, a residential community where you have your own space and receive help with daily activities, runs a national median of $5,350 a month. Genworth, 2023. That is more than $4,300 a month less than a private nursing home room. Adult day services, centers where you spend the day with programming and support and go home at night, approximately $1,779 a month. I want you to sit with those numbers for a moment, because the difference between a nursing home and staying home with a home health aide is more than $41,000 a year. That is a car. That is a college semester. That is a safety net for something else that hasn't happened yet. And nobody handed you a piece of paper comparing those numbers on the day you needed to make a decision. They handed you a brochure, a beautiful brochure with a photograph of a woman doing a puzzle and looking very content about it. Meanwhile, the real numbers, the ones that would change your thinking entirely, were sitting in a survey nobody told you to look up. I am telling you now, look it up. Genworth Cost of Care Survey, free, online, updated every year. Pull up your state and decide with the numbers in front of you, not the brochure. Medicare will pay for up to 100 days in a skilled nursing facility. 100 days. After that, you pay every dollar yourself. Medicare does not cover long-term custodial care, the kind most nursing home residents actually need. Medicaid does cover long-term care, but the asset and income eligibility rules are strict, and navigating them without help is exactly how families lose money they didn't have to lose. There is also something called a Medicaid look-back period, 5 years, during which assets transferred to family members can be counted against your eligibility. People lose Medicaid coverage over a gift they gave a grandchild years earlier that they never thought would be scrutinized. Know this before it happens to you. This is where I want you to call your SHIP counselor, State Health Insurance Assistance Program. They are federally funded, they are free, and they will sit with you in person or over the phone and explain every option available to you. Find yours through acl.gov. Most families that overpay, and the overpayment can run $50,000 to $100,000 or more, do so simply because no one told them these alternatives existed, not because they weren't smart enough to ask, because the right questions were never put in front of them. I have met families who spent everything their parents saved over a lifetime because they didn't know they had options. They carry that grief still. Information protects people. Love alone does not. Let me tell you what I wish someone had told me before any of this began. Update your advance directive today, not someday. A document telling the world exactly what you want for your medical care, signed, witnessed, and in the hands of the people who need to see it, is the most powerful sentence you will ever write. It doesn't have to be complicated. It has to be honest. It has to be yours. It has to say what you actually want, not what you think is reasonable, not what you think will be easiest for everyone else. What you want. A doctor who has never met you will make decisions based on what is standard. What is standard is not always what is right for you. Your advance directive says, I have thought about this. I have decided. This is my voice in writing when I cannot speak. Do not leave this world without writing it. Assign a durable power of attorney for health care to someone you truly trust. Not someone who is convenient, someone who will do what you want when you cannot speak for yourself, even if it is hard, even if the room is full of people who disagree. I have watched families fracture at bedsides because the person with legal authority was not the person the patient actually trusted. Choose your person carefully. Tell them what you want, in detail, more than once. Make sure they are willing to carry that weight. It is a weight. It is also a gift, to be trusted that completely. Have the hard conversation with your family before a crisis forces it. Over dinner, on a Sunday, in the car. It doesn't matter when. What matters is that the people who love you know what you want, so that when something happens, they are carrying out a plan, not improvising at the nurse's station at midnight. I have seen what happens when families have to improvise. I have watched it in the hallways. the guilt, the second guessing, the arguments that don't end because no one knows for certain what their loved one would have chosen. Don't leave the people you love with that weight. Write it down. Say it out loud. Say it more than once. If you are considering a facility for yourself or someone you love, visit it at least 3 times unannounced. Go once on a weekend evening. Go once just before dinner service. Go once first thing in the morning. You will see 3 different facilities. Ask them, what is your staff to resident ratio on the night shift? Ask them, how many complaints were filed with your state ombudsman last year? Ask them, what is your staff turnover rate? High turnover is one of the single most consistent predictors of poor care quality, and good facilities know their numbers and aren't afraid to say them. If they cannot answer the ombudsman question, that is your answer. A well-run facility knows those numbers. A well-run facility is not afraid of those numbers, the ones that go quiet when you ask. Pay attention to that silence. And look up the facility's inspection results on the Medicare Care Compare website. Free, public, and showing you citation history, staffing levels, and quality ratings. Don't skip that step. And know this, staying home is possible far longer than anyone tells you. With the right combination of home care, community services, and family support, most people can remain in their own homes well into their later years. The system does not always make this easy to see. There are financial incentives built into the way care is structured that do not always point toward the option that is best for you. But the actual numbers from the actual surveys point clearly toward home and community-based care as not only the less expensive option, but for most people, the preferred one. The brochure suggests the nursing home is the logical endpoint. The data suggests otherwise, and I am living proof. I am 99 years old. I wake up every morning in a room I chose. I make my own coffee. I open my own curtains. I decide what the day looks like before anyone else gets a vote. My husband's photograph is still on my nightstand, same as always, just a different nightstand. Some mornings I stand at the window and think about all the mornings I watched the same weather through a window I didn't choose, in a room I didn't choose, waiting for a day that was going to happen to me rather than one I was going to make. There is a difference between those 2 mornings that no level of kindness fully bridges. I am not saying the nursing home was wrong. I am saying it was not the only choice, just the only one anyone handed me. And every morning when I write the date at the top of a new orange notebook, I think about the people still sitting in that hallway. I think about Frank and his bridges and his folded hands. I think about what they might say if someone sat down and asked. Here is the last thing I want to leave you with. You may be reading this as someone who is fine right now. Everything is stable. Nothing is urgent. I hope that is true. But the families who are most protected, financially, emotionally, legally, are the ones who did the planning before the phone call, before the fall, before the diagnosis, before the conversation nobody wanted to have. The best time to prepare for any of this is long before you think you need to. The second best time is right now. Take whatever piece of this you can use today. One phone call, one conversation, one document signed and put in a drawer where someone knows to find it. That is enough for today. Do one thing while everything is still calm enough to do it well. 381 days in that facility taught me one thing above all others. The people who know their rights are the people who keep them. If this reached your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories and real advice from 99 years of living. I'll be here every week because, honey, I've got plenty left to say.